Hi, so we're going to look at lesson planning now, the top area of the form. Four areas that you're assessed in, maximum of 3 points in each, so a maximum of 12 points. Um, these things, I think I mentioned in the risk management one, these things are not assessed on their own, as it were, because there's links to the other areas. Particularly these first couple of rows. Did the trainer identify the pupil's learning goals, and was the agreed lesson structure appropriate for the pupil's experience and ability? That goes across lesson planning, but it's also teaching and learning strategies, and also risk management. So we have to make sure that we're getting the job right, that the pupil is involved, and that we're also taking account of teaching and learning strategies and risk management. So the DVSA's examiner guidance says the purpose of all driver training is to assess and develop the learner's skill, knowledge and understanding in relation to the contents of the National Standard for Driver and Rider Training, that research which led to the new standards for drivers. And that research indicates that it's best achieved by placing the client at the centre of the learning process, to have the learner actively involved, to no longer be passive in terms of being told what to do and having routes and stuff dictated. And we want them as heavily involved as we can possibly get. So in terms of, did you identify the pupil's learning goals and needs? What the DVSA are looking for are that you encourage the pupil to say what they want from the lesson, what they'd like to do today, or what they'd like to cover today. Obviously, in terms of risk management, we have to be sure that they're not taking too big a step, that they're not biting off more than they can chew. So we always got our safety hat on. Make sure that you ask questions to ensure that you understand what they're on about, and to keep checking that understanding as the lesson progresses. They want you to listen to what the pupil's saying, take note of their body language. Do they mean what they're saying? What they don't want from you is that you make assumptions about the pupil's understanding or their experience, or that you decide what the goals are going to be, or that you try and convince the learner to do something you want them to do. Now, if you put together a plan where you say, I'm going to ask you these questions and then you must answer this, I promise you that'll go wrong on the standards check, because the learner will forget what they're supposed to say under the pressure. They don't want you to miss any negative or concerned comments or body language that show discomfort or might indicate that they're not really buying into this. They don't want you to undermine their confidence by continually asking questions clearly beyond what the pupil's knowledge or understanding is. I hear and see a lot written about what coaching or client-centered learning is and isn't. And an awful lot of people seem to think, well, it's just about Q&A, and then start hitting the learner with a barrage of questions. It's not really what it's about. Yes, we use questions, but the particular types of questions that are designed to help the learner to make some decisions, to help the learner be aware of the situation and learn from it. It's not just about firing a ton of questions at them. And they don't want you to push the pupil to address issues that they're not happy to talk about, unless there is a clear need, such as an identified risk or a safety critical issue. What happened at that last roundabout there, So it's, we have to be sure, and again, this pushes across to the other areas about making sure you behave in a non-discriminatory manner. So it's really working in a way that the learner is happy with, to do things that they want to do. In short, really, what we're saying is we should help the learner discover what they want from the session. They might not know, but if we have the right kind of conversation with them, we can help them find out. That we actively listen to the learner. Now, we're not good at listening in our industry. What we are good at is being quiet while the learner speaks and being polite, just waiting for our turn to listen, our turn to speak. But when we're in that quiet mode, what we tend to be doing as ADIs is working out what our next question is going to be. Now that stops you listening to the answer to the previous question. And I think one of the key things here in terms of active listening, if you want to learn to be better at that, once you've asked a question, you mustn't break the silence. You mustn't also ask another question. Because we do that, don't we? We ask a question and then just to clarify, we ask another one. And then we maybe get the feeling that the learner's struggling a little. So we ask a further question. Get used to little silences. Ask the question and be quiet. The silence will be broken by the learner, even if it's just to say, I don't know. Help them really create realistic goals for the session. So if they're planning on doing something that's a bit risky, make them aware of that. And help them to see the bigger picture in terms of becoming a safe driver. These things that we're building up here are sub skills that fit into this, and so it can be useful to have a little skills matrix to say, here are all the things that we need to do. Here's a logical order in which we should do it, and helping them to see that progress through it. This one ties closely to the first one. Was the agreed lesson structure appropriate for the pupil's experience and ability? What the DVSA are saying. They want you to make sure that people understands what the plan is, what it means to them, and that they agree with it. That you deliver a lesson that reflects the information given by the pupil and the learning goals they want to tackle, and that you build in opportunities to check the statements made by the pupil before moving on to more challenging situations. So get used to summarizing and recapping. So if I've got this right, what we're saying is this is what we're going to do, blah blah blah. If you're not good at that, practice it on your friends. So when somebody tells you something, just say, so if I've got this right, what you're saying is, nobody ever goes, yeah, that's what I said. They go, yeah, that's right. So you're just clarifying all the time. You're making sure that you're both on message, as it were, and checking the theoretical understanding. What they don't want you to do is to deliver a pre-planned standard lesson that doesn't take into account the pupil's expressed needs or concerns or their wants, what they want from the session. They want to make sure as well that you're building in a suitable balance of practice and theory wherever possible. So what we're saying really is that we should make sure the learner's happy with the plan of action that we've agreed, and make sure that that plan meets their goals and the way they want to tackle things. What level of help do you want from me? How are we going to go about this? All that kind of stuff. The learners will buy into this eventually. Now, you can't just take people who you've been training in a standard way and suddenly flip the switch and think they're going to do this. This requires work, which is why it's so important to get these things done now and get some practice in. Make sure the plan is appropriate for the learner's current capabilities and not stretching them too far, not putting us into a position where we're going to be unsafe because we can't cope. And the only way to be sure is to invite them into the process. Help them build a review process to check that everything's okay before moving on to more challenging situations or to higher levels. And make sure that you're helping them build up learning in small, easily manageable steps. And then help them to ensure that each step has a clear beginning, middle and end, and every step from that point forward. This ties in, doesn't it, with the practice area suitable. What they want you to do is to have a range of opportunities to address the agreed learning objectives and that meets the plan that we've laid out, short repetitive route. Have a route or an area that has challenges, but it's realistic in terms of the pupil's confidence and capabilities at any given time. What they don't want from you is to take the pupil outside of their competence or confidence zone, so that they spend all that time just surviving, just getting through it, and they've got no space really to look at the learning issues because they're so panicky because they've been pushed too far, or they're in too heavy a traffic, or we've taken too big a step. They don't want you to expose the pupil to any risks or tasks that they can't manage without a ton of help from you, so they don't want you in all the time. If we get the small sized steps right, you should never have to intervene. So basically what we're saying is we should make sure the learner's happy with the plan, happy with the route. Maybe they're going to trust you on the route because they don't know their area that well. We should make sure that the learner's goals, steps and the route meet with approval from them. So this is what we're planning on doing. Are you happy with that? And help them develop in small, easily manageable steps, allowing as much autonomy as possible. For example, if you're doing T-junctions emergent, you've got a little loop planned. On the second or perhaps third time around that loop, so can you remember the route? Do you want to just do that on your own without any help from me? And stop after each loop, after each lap, and just say, okay, tell me about that. What's going on there? What have we learned from that? On this next lap, what do you want to get out of that? So you're continually inviting the learner in to help them to self-develop, really. So also we need to make sure there's a challenge, but not outside of that comfort zone. And we need to provide opportunities in the areas we choose to progress further or to take a remedial step wherever that might be necessary. So a bit of time spent on route planning can help with lesson planning. And make sure that what we do is we examine any unreasonable risks, getting back to risk management, and alter the plan or route accordingly, or have strategies in place to deal with them safely. You need to do your research and know your area well, because if you suddenly find there's a lot of traffic diverted through the town because the main ring road is blocked, you need to have other places you can go. And one of the key things is you need to make good use of the lesson time available. It's no good trundling about the place with a roundabout every 4 miles. You want a short, repetitive route where you can have a little burst of activity. And then the key thing then is that's some experience that we've had. We need to help the learner then reflect, replay, rewind in their mind what just happened, and then evaluate what worked well, what didn't, what have we learned, what we did that worked, what we did that maybe didn't. What else might we do if we do that route again, and then execute that plan, and then the loop begins again. It's a short, repetitive route with a review process at the end, and it's incredibly effective at helping people learn. And the last bit on this section of the form was the lesson plan adapted when appropriate to help the pupil work towards their learning goals. Now, what they don't want you to do is to do a pre-prepared speech, which is all about, now if the lesson plan needs adapting, I will do that and we'll do it. No, if the plan doesn't need adapting, don't even mention it. Why would you? Examiners will smell a rat and think, oh, okay, you're doing this just because you've seen the thing on the form. What they want from you is that you compare the actual performance of the pupil, or help the pupil to compare their actual performance with their claims, and clarify any differences. If they think everything's working okay and you're bouncing in and out on the dual brake all the time, then a conversation needs to happen here. And we mustn't dictate what's going to happen. Oh, we're not doing very well here, so we're going to do something else. A conversation needs to happen where you do a genuine performance review and then match it with, this is what you think's happening, this is what I think's happening. There's a bit of a mismatch here. Did I have to help you a lot on the brakes there? Well, I suppose you did. So you're not actually doing that on your own. All right. So in light of that, what do we want to do? Classic one. I spoke to a guy a little while ago who'd failed his standards check. And this was one of the areas where he went down. They were driving on a section of dual carriageway to an area where they were going to practice something. And the instructor had to jump on the dual brake at 60 miles an hour. Now that's pretty serious. So he decided that they weren't going to work on that. They were just going to carry on and do what they already had planned. Well, obviously a conversation needs to happen about, well, okay, hang on a second. We had originally planned to do that, do X, Y, and Z, but I've had to jump in on that dual brake at 60 miles an hour. That's fairly safety critical. Do you think we need to work on that? And if the people said no, I think I might be tempted to say, listen, in terms of safety, we really have to sort this out, because we're going to have to drive on this dual carriageway on the way back. So I think it's really important that we do some work on that. Would you agree that's the case? And then you're starting on the lesson planning from L1 again. So it's important that we have the conversation about it, though, that you don't just make the decision on your own. They want you to respond to any faults or weaknesses that undermine the original plan for the session. So if anything's safety critical, anything that would result in a test failure, would need looking at, wouldn't it? Because we fail the test when we're not safe. Respond to any concerns or issues raised by the pupil. I'm not comfortable with this. Okay, do you want to do something else? And pick up on non-verbal signs of discomfort or confusion. We all recognize it, don't we? You're having a little conversation with the learner and you're approaching a fast-moving roundabout and suddenly there's no response from the driver's seat. You know something's up. That needs looking at. Okay, tell me about that roundabout approach. Normally we were chatting there, you went very quiet. Tell me what was going on in your mind. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? And in that way, we can maybe highlight where there's areas that need work, and then put a different plan together. But only if there's an issue. If everything's going fine, then it doesn't matter. If you didn't need to change the lesson plan, then that row, as with any other row where no action was taken, it's like, did the trainer intervene appropriately? Well, if he didn't need to intervene, or there was no need for a change, that defaults to a 3. So we don't need to worry about that. What they don't want you to do is to persist with a plan, despite the pupil being clearly out of their depth. Now, you may well have planned a route and that might all go pear-shaped because your learner can't cope. Don't worry about it, and don't just, belligerently keep on with that. Pull over at your earliest convenience and have a chat about it. Okay, this isn't working. In light of that, what else might we be able to do? And don't persist with the plan despite the people demonstrating faults or weaknesses that should lead to a rethink of the plan. Anything that's safety safety related. And don't change the plan without a reason, just because you fancied it. And they don't want you to fail to explain to the people why the plan needed changing. Or again, a conversation needs to happen. So basically what we're saying is, would the learner have benefited from a change in the lesson plan due to many factors, but big ones: unexpected road and traffic conditions, the ring road's blocked, there's a lot of traffic in town, changes in their emotional or physical state, they might not be feeling very well, they might be tired because they've got a baby that's teething, the learner wanting to change, oh, this is too much for me today, can I do something else? But yeah, well, of course you can. Or the learner struggling to meet their goals for whatever reason. So then we need to really think about, okay, well, what are we going to do about that? So it's all about having conversations with your learner, making sure you've got the lessons set up the way you want, you both want, and then checking that everything's working the way that it should. As I've got my email address up there. If you have any questions, feel free to ask or post them in the comments below the video, and I'll always try and answer them. And again, that's the same email address to use if you want to do some training. Again, hopefully you found that useful. If you have, brilliant. If you haven't, sorry for wasting your time. And I hope it's brought maybe a little bit of clarity to what that's about, because there's a lot of bad information out there. The key thing is to remember that client-centered, it's dead easy. The client's at the center of everything. Get used to working with your learners, if you don't already do it this way, and invite them into taking part in the lessons. The more you do it, the easier it'll become. Thanks for listening.